The role of intellect in controlling the mind. We all are acquainted with our whimsical mind. It flits from place to place and from topic to topic like a ball in a roulette game. It wanders off even from very interesting topics, then what to say of its rebelliousness when the work at hand is dreary. Consequently, we develop the notion that our mind is not under our control and that we just have to put up with unwelcome distractions and thoughts. However, this is not the case. If we learn to harness the power of the intellect, we will discover immense ability to manage our mind. In the last chapter, we learned how breaking bad habits and developing good ones require a resolute intellect. The Bhagavad Gita also repeatedly refers to the importance of the intellect. In it, Lord Krishna describes his teachings as Buddhi Yoga or the yoga of the intellect. He repeatedly instructs Arjuna to surrender his intellect to God. In light of this, let us explore the intellect's position in the internal hierarchy. How the mind and intellect interact. The intellect makes decisions and the mind generates desires. For example, if the intellect decides that happiness is in ice creams, the mind hankers for it. If the intellect decides that money will solve all of his life's problems, the mind thinks money, money, money. And if the intellect decides that prestige is the source of happiness, the mind yearns to be famous and respected in society. In other words, the intellect makes the decision and the mind engages in sankalp, hankering, and vikalp, aversion. Between them, the intellect's position is of paramount importance. An example will make this very clear. Let us say Ganga Prasad has not eaten for 4 days. He is very tormented. Food, food, food is all he can think about. After 4 days, he is presented with a silver plate filled with delicious foods. His mouth salivates, and the senses hanker for relishing the contact with their sense objects. The mind asks the intellect for the go-ahead to pick up a delicious gulab jamun, an Indian dessert. The intellect instructs the mind, yes, yes, go ahead. I am also very tormented. Do not delay, pick it up. The mind instructs the hand and it picks up the gulab jamun. The hand brings it up to his mouth. The senses are eager and the stomach rumbles. Will anything be able to change his mind at this moment? Impossible, you may think. But suddenly his friend cries out, "What are you doing? Do you wish to die? That gulab jamun has been poisoned." Poison? Die? Something is wrong here. The intellect commands, stop. The intellect instructs the mind, which instructs the hand. The hand tosses away the gulab jamun. Now see, if he will change his mind. Offer him a temptation. Sir, we will give you 1 crore to consume the gulab jamun. Please eat it. What will I do with the crore if I die? No, thank you. He won't budge, no matter how hungry he is, for his intellect is convinced that eating the gulab jamun will kill him. Ask him again, how do you know the food is poisoned? My friend told me, he replies. Is your friend perfectly honest? Is he an avatar of the truthful Harish Chandra? No, no, I've often caught him telling lies. Okay, never mind. Have you ever seen poison in your life? No? So, you have never seen poison in your life, and yet one statement from this untrustworthy friend made you throw away the gulab jamun. Yes? How did Ganga Prasad gain such control over the mind? Though he was hungry for the last 4 days and his senses were hankering for food, he abstained from the delicious gulab jamun. The control came from the intellect. When it decides that the gulab jamun is harmful to his self-interest, it cramped down upon the mind and senses. The Yajurveda states, to cross over the material ocean and attain your divine goal, illumine your intellect with divine knowledge. Then, with the illuminated intellect, control the unruly mind. This is why it is said, knowledge is power, for it is true or correct knowledge that enables good decision making. Usually, however, the situation is not so straightforward. The mind and intellect are not always in accord. Sometimes the intellect is unclear about what is beneficial, and at other times the mind is adamant about the object it craves. Thus, strife arises in the internal machinery. Let us understand our inner apparatus further. The 4 aspects of our internal machinery. The Vedic scriptures describe our Antahakaran, mind, or eternal heart as having 4 aspects. Mind, Man. It creates the thoughts, feelings, desires, hankerings, and aversions. Second, intellect, Buddhi. Its function is to analyze and decide. It understands, decides, and discriminates. That is, this is good, this is bad. Third, subconscious mind, Chitta. It is the storehouse of impressions and memories. It enables one to get attached to an object or person. Fourth, ego, Ahankar. It is the ego or I-ness. It produces the sense of identity with the attributes of the body and creates pride. These are not 4 separate entities, rather, they are simply 4 levels of functioning of the one mind. Hence, we may either refer to all of them together as the mind, or as the mind intellect, or as the mind intellect ego, or as the mind intellect subconscious ego mechanism. They all refer to the same thing. Various scriptures designate the mind in any of these 4 ways. Man, the Panchadashi refers to all 4 together as the mind. The state and states that it is the cause of material bondage. Man Buddhi. In the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna repeatedly talks of the mind and the intellect as two things and emphasizes the need to control both and to surrender them to God. Man, Buddhi, Ahankar. The Yog Darshan refers to the inner mechanism in terms of three entities mind, intellect, and ego that must be disciplined to attain union with God. Man, Buddhi, Chit, Ahankar. Shankaracharya, while explaining the apparatus available to the soul, has classified the mind into four mind: intellect, subconscious, and ego. All the above designations refer to the same internal gear within us, which is together called Antahakaran. Among the four states of the mind, the two most important are the Man and the Buddhi. The battle between mind and intellect. We had discussed earlier that the intellect possesses the decision making power. If it decides that eating a rasgulla will give happiness, then the mind desires, I want a rasgulla for dinner today. See, the intellect made the decision and the mind followed by creating a corresponding desire for rasgulla. This is an instance where the intellect decides and the mind desires accordingly. Consider another scenario. A thought arises, I am not eating well these days. Tonight I will cook broccoli, cauliflower, and beans. The intellect contemplates this and has a favorable evaluation. The mind rebels and thinks, yuck, healthy food is so boring. The mind now has a strong desire for something less healthy and tastier. How about a nice veggie burger and fries instead? Yum. In this way, the mind resists the intellect and presents a desire for junk food. But it is not what the intellect considers best for the health of the body. Now the battle is on between the mind's cravings and the intellect's knowledge. As a possible outcome, the intellect yields to the mind's desires for the veggie burger and even sanctions it. But is this a case of proper mind management? You know it isn't. Controlling the mind requires us to empower the intellect with divine wisdom. Then we use the intellect to govern the mind. Jagat Guru Kripaluji Maharaj state, मन को मानो शत्रु उसकी सुनहु जानी कछु प्यारे. Dear one, consider the impure mind to be your enemy. Do not listen to its whims. The desirous mind is like a little child. It wants immediate gratification of pleasure and the removal of pain. It is like the idea in Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory. I want what I want, when I want, the way I want, and I want it now. We should not succumb to its tugging. Instead, we should use the discerning intellect to judge what is good and what is bad. The power of discernment. The ability of the intellect to control the mind is called vivek, power of discernment. We all possess it and use it to varying degrees. But since we not have harnessed its full potential, we erroneously conclude that the mind is not under our control. Here are some examples that highlight the power of intellect in controlling the mind. There are very few people who actually enjoy their professional work. Given the choice, instead of going to the office, they would much rather stay at home with their family. This is why most people feel joyful on Friday evenings at the thought of having 2 holidays ahead. Similarly, for many, Monday morning is a time for dejection, as the thought of 5 days of work ahead saddens the mind. This shows that the mind dislikes the drudgery of office. Yet, against the desires of the mind, even an ordinary person works at least 8 hours a day. What enables this subjugation of the mind? It is the power of intellect. Once the intellect decides that work is necessary for living, it controls the mind. That is how the whole world manages to work despite the complaining mind. Instead, if the mind was allowed to have its way, then staying in the office all day long would be impossible for most people. Have you ever wondered why anger flows downward? The CEO shouts at the director does not shout back because the intellect realizes that it will cost him his job if he were to do so. Instead, he vents his anger upon his manager. The manager controls himself despite feeling vexed with the director but finds release by shouting at the foreman. The manager controls himself despite feeling vexed with the director but finds release by shouting at the foreman. The foreman takes it all out at the worker. The worker purges his frustration on the wife, and the wife shouts at the child. The child lets it out on the dog. In each case, the intellect decides where it is dangerous to get angry and where it does not have repercussions. This proves that all of us, with the discernment of the intellect, can control our anger. This capability of discernment, called vivek, is granted primarily to humans. The intellect of other species is not endowed with it beyond a marginal extent. They cannot think, though my mind and senses are eager for food, I will observe a fast for spiritual purification. But humans have been vested with the capacity for vivek, and they are expected to use it to rein in their mind and senses. The moment we relinquish the intellect's power, of discernment between right and wrong, we fall to the level of animals. The gift of receiving the human form comes with the responsibility of living by the wisdom of the intellect and not by the whims of the mind. Thus, the Veds state, Tattva Vismaranat Bhekivat. One who abandons vivek, discernment in one's actions, becomes like a beast. Even children use discernment. Suppose the parents are watching TV in the next room, the child is tempted to do the same. But then she thinks, I have my exam tomorrow. If I do not study, I will fail. The child successfully uses her intellect to control the mind's desire for gratification. Now consider a more powerful example. The parents of a child called Munna are anxious because he does not apply himself to studies. They ask him the reason for it. He responds by saying that his mind is unable to focus on studies. It keeps wandering in all directions. Munna and his parents are both worried by the problem which seems to have no solution. Yet, when the same child goes for his year-end final exam, he brings his mind under control and totally focuses on answering the question paper for 3 hours. When the time is up, the examiner has to snatch the answer sheet out of his hands. But for those 3 hours, he did not get distracted by anything. How did he garner such concentration? When all year round he was complaining about his mind's inability to focus on his lessons. This became possible by the decision of the intellect. When his intellect decides that those 3 hours were important and carelessness would result in loss of the entire year, it forced the mind to apply itself. If that level of concentration had been maintained throughout the year, Munna would have stood a good chance of becoming a national level scholar. However, throughout the year, his intellect's decision was, studies are not important, they are important for my parents, but they do not know anything. They do not understand that playing with cricket with my friends is far more important. When the decision of the intellect was otherwise, there was no scope for the mind to remain focused. Even if it did get focused for a few moments, the intellect would jerk it away. There is no happiness here. Think of cricket. That is where true pleasure lies. This example illustrates the power of the intellect in controlling the mind. We must therefore cultivate it with correct knowledge and use it to guide the mind in the proper direction. If our intellect has mistaken values and insufficient knowledge, where will our life end up? The science of mind management requires us to empower the intellect with right knowledge from the scriptures and then use that illumined intellect to properly govern the mind.